What's good, World Republic? Welcome back to another video. Editor Sly here. Glad you could make it. Before we start, please join the Discord community, link down below for me. When you click the link, the invite should appear as shown. Click accept invite for direct access to yours truly, your fellow community, as well as being notified every time we go live. You'll also be able to view all VODs from the Discord server, as well as any YouTube videos, and be notified when I post here on YouTube. Speaking of YouTube, around 99% of you guys aren't subscribed to the channel. Make sure you fix that by hitting the subscribe button and turning on all notifications. If you do that, I can find the content for you and we can watch it together. Shout out to all my current subscribers as well as current subs on Twitch. We call y'all citizens, you feel me? And yeah, enjoy the video. What's good, YouTube? Now another reaction. Yeah, exposing the truth of Shonen Underdogs. My pint is here, and this is a longer video, so I'll try to ensure that I don't yap too much, and if I do, it'll be like during the video rather than pausing. That's why I think it was important that I turn my mic up a little bit more so you can hear me better, especially because unlike with my normal setup where my mic is like right in front of me, my mic is all the way over here. So I had to turn it up just so I could be heard, because most of the commentary I make during video kind of gets overshadowed by video. But as always, I'm going to prefer a little light. And then I want to, once again, let y'all know to make sure y'all check out the Discord community, which is linked down in the description. That'll help you stay notified every time I post a video. And that is the most direct method to contact me. You'll be able to see every single video I post. You'll be able to see every time I go live. You know what I'm saying? But without further ado, we're just going to jump straight into this video. Talk to me, Professor Punk.
There is no such thing as a shonen underdog. That is, admittedly, a pretty wide-reaching statement. And to be honest, if you took even 1 second to think about it, you would immediately know that I am very, very wrong. But, at the very least, I think you'll soon believe me when I tell you that being the underdog in shonen isn't the rule. It's the exception. The template for a shonen underdog is pretty simple. Start with a low-status protagonist, usually around, let's say, 15 years old. Someone mocked, ignored, and underestimated. If you're feeling fancy, you can sprinkle in some supposed disadvantages, like having no powers in a world full of them, or some inverse disability that marks them as less than. Oh, and don't worry too much about managing its drawbacks. In like 4 arcs tops, this disability will somehow loop back into being a good thing.
Yeah, like the heavenly restriction has no no, that's wrong, because there are heavenly restrictions like I'm trying to remember his name, but the robot dude, where like his skin, he has fucking glass bones and paper skin, but he can't, even the moonlight burns his skin. So it's like, you know what I'm saying? I mean, he's not a protagonist, to be fair, but having restrictions do have weaknesses, but it is a luck thing. So I see what he's saying.
Of course, you can't forget to mix in some grand ambition, which is 90% of the time just becoming that world's equivalent to the president. And lastly, slap on some ridiculous willpower that will have the audience questioning whether or not the main character even has pain receptors, and bam, you've got yourself a certified shonen hero. But here's the catch. Time and time again, authors fall into the same trap. These characters are meant to be framed as nobodies, underdogs who clawed their way up from the dirt. But when you actually peel back the layers and really look at what the story is doing, something becomes painfully clear. They were never true underdogs to begin with. Whether it's hidden powers, divine lineages, the strongest mentor in the world taking them personally.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying. That is one thing that is kind of, Aaron's face right there was crazy. That's one of those things that is apparent with I remember Swag Kage, that is, made a video about Naruto being an underdog, or not being, I can't really remember, but I watched a video from Tony, the comedian Tony Stadovici, about how Naruto was never an underdog because he had more chakra than anything. He was only getting hoed by the Nine Tails, but he had advantages. Only thing he didn't have is the mental fortitude. Well, he did have the mental fortitude because he was bullied, but I'm saying like he was being honed mentally, right? But the things that he had genetically gave him advantage. So like he was never really the underdog. He was stronger than Sasuke, all types of stuff, right? While Swag made a video saying like that wasn't the case actually because he was being hoed by Kurama, right? So there are times where like the thing that they turn into a power is like kind of like a luck thing. I mean, they do it through hard work. Like befriending Kurama was done through hard work, but once people see it, they're like, oh, well, Killer B did it too. So it's like, oh, well, really, he technically got a power amp, you know? So it's like, then that underdog title starts becoming questionable. But in cases like Deku, yeah, you can't really be considered the underdog if you're that lucky. I feel people don't want you to be considered the underdog at that point. He was already very intelligent too, but I think really what it is the author gives them some saving grace, and then they end up with luck getting something after other people have it, which makes them kind of the underdog because their starting line is like way farther back than other people's starting lines. But because of the thing that they have that makes them different than those people, plus now having the thing those other people have, they have accelerated growth. Let's see what Pint has to say about that. I think that's what this video is going to lead
under
to.
their wing, or sheer narrative convenience. These protagonists often start the race miles ahead of other people just like them. And yet the story begs for us to root for them as if they're the least likely one to win. So the question is, are they really underdogs, or are we just being told they are? In this video, we'll be breaking down some of Shonen's most iconic underdogs, character by character, and examining whether or not they truly deserve that title. So stay along. You might just learn something important. There are two main ways an author can frame a character as an underdog. One way is through their backstory and upbringing, and the other way is through their toolset. In the case of a backstory, you usually get a character who's lost their parents, comes from poverty, or a totally average background, and reasonably has no chance of succeeding. Of course, genetics should play a part in that equation too, but as you quickly begin to realize, while most shonen do a passable job of giving their protagonists a rough start in life, they completely drop the ball when it comes to their characters' genetics. It doesn't really matter whether or not you were born in a dumpster when you're literally part god. Speaking of which, let's take a look at one of the most iconic underdogs to come out of shonen.
That's what I'm saying though. Genetics gives them an amp, right? But from where they started, they could have easily not have used that amp. Easily given up, easily become a villain, or easily like died or something. Deku was quirkless. Genetic wise, that makes him perfect for one for all. True. He's intelligent. True. But if he got caught in a type of attack, he could have died early. It's like he is kind of fodder to his verse. But when he gets this thing, it kind of catapults them. Like their growth increases.
Naruto Uzumaki. Now, I'm not one of those anti-teachers who bait people with lukewarm, Naruto never worked hard takes. He did. He was an orphan who lost both of his parents the night he was born. The image of Naruto's loneliness, him being alone on that swing set, is extremely iconic within the anime community. In fact, Naruto's loneliness was so bad, it loops back around into the people around him being literally stupid. The whole village hated him, despite knowing there was a walking nuke sealed inside of him that literally fed on his negative emotions. So they hated this kid so much that it literally fried their brains. So here's where I break from the usual critique. A lot of people say Naruto isn't a real underdog because of how powerful he becomes.
That's what I just said. People, peep chat, the predict is hitting. That's what I just said. People see the power that they get to and go, oh, they were never like an underdog. They were never under the running.
And how powerful he was destined to be. But to be honest, I feel like that's purposely missing the point. Naruto isn't an underdog in terms of ability or powers. He's an underdog in terms of emotional and moral development. Think about it. So many characters in Naruto's world fall victim to pain and hatred. Nagato, Obito, Sasuke. Naruto had every reason to become just like them. No parents, no friends, no guidance, just hate. Despite all of that, he still chose to be a good person. That's what makes him an underdog. Not beating the odds in power, but beating the odds in character. Now,
I think it was still odds and power earlier on. Like, it was very apparent that Naruto is stupid. Unlike Goku, where he has battle IQ, like Goku is like this naive person of human customs, but is a god tier fighter because he's trained by Grandpa Gohan. Naruto was like an idiot through and through. So it was like that was his disadvantage. But as he fought, he proved that his battle IQ is pretty high up there. And he is a shinobi, you know? To get to where he got to throughout all of the hate, he had to learn some things and pick up some tricks. Believe it.
all that being said, if you believe that Naruto is an underdog in terms of power, then yeah, that's ridiculous. Naruto's dream of becoming Hokage feels much less like a dream and much more of a guarantee with the hindsight of the entire series.
Let me. I'm already know where this is going. He has Kurama. He's an Uzumaki, so he has better chakra reserves. He was trained by Kakashi, who was trained by Minato, who was trained by Jiraiya, who was trained by the third Hokage, who was trained by the second Hokage, and the first Hokage. So Naruto really is connected. High chakra reserves, Kurama, connections. Yeah, that's everything people know.
First of all, you have the Nine Tails, which, all things considered, is an earnest attempt at a double-edged sword, giving him immense chakra reserves at the risk of losing control.
Sanity.
But if you track its use over the course of the series, you really only find Kurama benefiting Naruto much less than he limits him. As people very correctly pointed out in my last video, despite the narrative saying things like, version 2 will drain Naruto's life, there are very few shown consequences. But even without Kurama's chakra, Naruto is already plenty loaded. He's the son of the fourth Hokage, and Uzumaki clan royalty, a bloodline known for their massive chakra reserves and ridiculous vitality. Add on Naruto being the reincarnation of Ashura,
okay, yeah, I didn't go this far.
Giving him access to 6 path powers, as well as the fact that he was also labeled as the child of prophecy, and altogether you essentially get a ninja Jesus. Based on his background, Naruto was never not going to win. I don't believe Kishimoto actually had any intention of carrying that hard work beats genetic narrative far, but when you consider that part 1 message to the end of the series, I do have to admit it is pretty damn funny. So all in all, Naruto's genetics are pretty stacked, but they are nothing in comparison to Ichigo's.
Mr. I'm everything.
Ichigo Kurosaki,
Mr. Go Ichi,
is what happens when you suddenly decide to give your protagonist every major power system in your story. Kubo seemed dead set on making Ichigo match every villain he fought in terms of the abilities that they could use. So let's start from the very beginning of the Underdog setup. The whole idea was that Ichigo is...
yeah, he was cooking with Shinigami with Shinigami powers and his huge sword. And then he cooked Grimmjow and kind of Ukiura by releasing more of his hollow powers.
Just a regular high schooler dragged into a supernatural war zone. That's the setup of the Agent of the Shinigami and Soul Society arcs. He borrows Rukia's powers, and while he's weirdly strong, it's nothing too outlandish. Yet. Then we start peeling back the layers. Turns out the Shinigami powers weren't borrowed, they were his all along. Okay, cool twist, I'm not gonna hate. Then we learn he actually has an inner hollow living inside of him that comes out only when he's in danger. A bit edgier, yeah, but who doesn't love an inner demon? After this though, it just becomes ridiculous. Ichigo is randomly handed out Fullbring powers so he can still stay relevant without his Shinigami powers. But that whole grand sacrifice is instantly undone as Ichigo gains his Shinigami powers back. Just like Uryu, Kubo doesn't really stick to the whole I'm losing my powers forever thing. Before you know it, it's the 1000-year Blood War arc. And you guessed it, he's also part Quincy. Now, if you know the story, you might ask, but aren't Quincy supposed to be poisoned by hollows? How could you have a child that's a fusion of both? Bro, don't worry. It's explained in chapter 14 of Can't Fear Your Own World. It's all chill. By the end of the series, Ichigo is part substitute Shinigami, part hollow, part Fullbringer but not really anymore, Part full Shinigami, part Quincy, and part human. Even a 14-year-old me could not come up with an OC this stacked. Yeah, Ichigo is ridiculous.
That joint sound like Ichigo is the definition of when like you're playing a little kid in like a fight with like toys. And like, well, my guy's ability cancels your guy's ability to cancel my guy's ability.
Ridiculous. One big factor that defines a good underdog is the dream. That impossible goal they chase, even against all odds. That's what lies at the very heart of the genre. Watching someone who starts with nothing slowly claw their way towards something they should, by all logic, never be able to achieve.
Yeah.
It's satisfying because it feels earned. So if you're going to do this properly, you need a character who actually works for what they have. You want someone who actually managed to use their own effort and willpower to push through and achieve that impossible dream. And on that end, both Deku and Asta fail completely. Let's start with My Hero Academia. The entire underdog narrative begins with a powerful declaration.
Is it possible to become a hero even if I don't have a quirk? I'm a normal kid.
It kind of shows how slow his delivery is. Because when he plays, like, unless the clip is also sped up, like here, to fit 10 seconds so he doesn't get copyright. But with the filter there, I'm assuming that's, like, kind of blocking it. When, like, you hear someone talking at a regular tone and 1.1, you can tell they're sped up. Versus with him, it kind of just sounds like a regular person speaking.
Kid without any powers. Could I ever hope to be someone like you?
No! That even someone without a quirk can become a hero.
You say run this generation.
It's a strong premise. For more context, you've got a world where 80% of the population is born with some kind of power.
Which is ridiculous, by the way.
Called a quirk.
80%, right?
Some people get to become walking missile silos, while others have spray bottles for heads. Deku, the protagonist, of course falls into the unlucky 20% with no quirk at all, which on paper is a perfect setup for the classic underdog material. Quick side note. The fact that
Deku had a 1 in 5 chance to get hoed and still got hoed.
Deku was constantly bullied for being quirkless is ridiculous. Like, bro, that's 1 in 5 people. And the guy with stretchy eyeballs is literally right there. Anyway, the show sets up this noble, grand idea that Deku, despite his lack of powers, could become the greatest hero purely through willpower, a little bit of brains, and a lot of heart. That immediately betrays that idea because it's stupid. So instead of having to work his way up with cleverness or grit, Deku stumbles into a conversation with All Might, who is...
I think this is also a little bit reductionist though, because to use, again, in these cases like Naruto and Deku, right, a lot of things aligned to make it to where they're a guaranteed shoo-in. Like Deku being quirkless and then inheriting one for all. But like All Might wasn't using all the different like quirks, right? So it shows that Deku earned something, even though Prime All Might was supposed to be like, again, LeBron Jordan in his verse. Naruto having the genetics of like Hagoromo and all of that is kind of a shoo-in. But it didn't survive Kurama's chakra. He would have died. His dad took half of it to make sure he survived that. Right? There's also the fact of the matter, if he tried to use Kurama too much crutch, not clutch, he would die. There's also the fact of the matter that if he never got past Shadow Clone Jutsu joint, or had to properly manage the chakra and like get Kurama out the way, he would have been hoed. He would have been just like Rock Lee. But I'm sure he wouldn't have trained physical prowess. And if he did, all that Hagoromo shit wouldn't have helped him then. If he couldn't block that pathway. Then there's the emotional joint. Like what made him really keep going was his dream, his want to like create change. So it's like, I feel like it's kind of reductionist to go like, oh yeah, everything was made perfect for them. Which is why I'm glad he's not saying that. But what he's saying is there are less of underdogs than you tend to believe. Which, you know, at that point it's an opinion more than anything. But with the Deku joint, he still had to learn how to use every single one of those quirks. He still had to like, you know what I'm saying, kind of go crazy. And then the villains, their abilities just got so much stronger to where like him being able to contend with them in itself is a feat of like his intelligence and pure genius and adaptability.
Essentially the LeBron James of heroes. Thanks to a combination of suicidal heroic tendencies, inability to read a situation, and general interference with licensed professionals, All Might decides, yeah, you get the magic juice. And just like that, Deku is handed One for All, single-handedly the most powerful quirk within the entire verse. And not just One for All, it turns out that that quirk comes preloaded with 6 extra quirks, as if the first one wasn't enough. It's really funny to think, Gentle Criminal tried the same kind of passionate, self-sacrificial shit that Deku pulled off, but instead of being rewarded a god quirk, his dreams fell apart. What annoys me most about My Hero being rewarded a god passionate, self-sacrificial shit, really funny to think, Gentle Criminal tried the same kind of passionate, self-sacrificial shit that Deku
cooked the hero,
but instead of
because he was trying to use it to save them, he couldn't have made more. And at that point, he couldn't have made it closer to the ground, so like they would have survived.
Being rewarded a god quirk, his dreams fell apart.
In his life.
What annoys me most about My Hero Academia is that it almost commits to some semblance of an underdog premise right before throwing it away. Despite what I've said, I have no problems with One for All or even the 6 quirks attached to it. But in the early arcs, I loved how Deku couldn't rely solely on his quirk, and actually had to use his instincts alongside years of observing heroes from the sidelines to get ahead. There was this idea that all those powerless years had made him sharper or even more creative than his classmates.
That's what I was saying.
Who had grown up relying on their quirks.
That is exactly what I was saying. Because their starting line is so much further, when they get the same gear you had, they're gonna go farther than you. What I'm saying is, their starting line is further back. I'm not saying the starting line is ahead of you. No. This is where everyone else starts. This is where the main character starts. You feel me? So the whole time you all the way up here, once they get the same joint you got, they can go way further because they learned something to help them take this huge gap and make it this. Right? So now you're up here, they're up here, something like that. But they can now like smoke you, blow by you, Tyson.
The biggest example of this actually happens in the sports festival. Watching him win the race by using strategy instead of strength was genuinely one of the most peak moments across the entire series. But of course, the moment Full Cowling gets introduced, that mentality was dropped entirely. What once was a story about how having less can teach you more.
I kind of disagree. I think that what he's talking about is showcased less. Like him using his cheek, breaking certain fingers rather than breaking his entire arm. I think what he's talking about is shown less, but to the same effect, when he had to learn to use the other quirks, it was kind of brought back. It's still there. It's just not the forefront of what makes him a special hero, basically.
Or becomes yet another, I get stronger so I win shonen. It's not that strength arcs or strength-based narratives are inherently bad, but when your whole premise was built around such a unique idea, it's just kinda disappointing. The funniest part of all of this is that you don't even need a quirk or 7 to kick ass. Hell, Stain's quirk just paralyzes people, but outside of that, he's still physically contending with some of the highest outputs in the verse. Or you even have Knuckle Duster from the spin-off, a guy with no quirk at all who's just smart, jacked, and effective. There was a path for Deku to stay grounded. The end of the series kind of proves this, but that path gets buried under layers of glowing power-ups and hand-me-down super quirks. Then you have Asta. Asta's situation mirrors Deku's in a lot of ways. Born into a magical-filled world with no magic, it's pretty much the same thing. Well, aside from the fact that Deku's quirklessness is 1 in 5, while Asta's is more like 1 in 8 billion. He's the only person in this entire world without magic. Despite this catastrophic birth defect, Asta still boldly proclaims that he'll become the Wizard King, which is...
And what's even harder about this, we figure out why his mom did that.
Basically the Wizard President. Naturally, this is completely ridiculous, and so the narrative has to bail him out. Enter anti-magic. At first, it's framed as a crutch. It's incredibly powerful in the right situation, nullifying any magic it touches, but it lacks the versatility and utility of regular magic. Yeah. Much like early series Deku, the appeal of early series Asta was based on watching someone get by with just muscles and relatively simple magic and strategy alone.
IQ, yeah.
For example, Asta could not use Mana Skill, making him prone to dangerous magic environments. Black Asta. Okay, but Asta is unable to fly conveniently unlike other magic users, meaning he has to run wherever he goes the sword can fly. Okay, but he's still limited to short range and doesn't have AoE, right? Flying slashes. Okay, the sword has to at least touch the magic, right? AoE anti-magic. Let me be brutally honest here. Anti-magic is not a crutch. All of its limitations, counters, and drawbacks get
Okay, I'm hearing them out on this one though. Yeah, the drawbacks to anti-magic as a whole, you see that it's not a flawed thing. It's in fact just another system that other people don't get to peek into.
patched out
So
halfway
it's like he gets a separate power system amongst the power system that already exists.
through the series. And it's not even anti-magic's fault, it's the ridiculous magic paired alongside it. Most fans casually refer to Asta's magic as anti-magic, but that's misleading. The truth is, Asta actually has a god-tier magic hybrid. He basically has two different magic types. Sword magic is fucking ridiculous. It allows the user to absorb spells on some renegade shit, levitate their swords, and somehow even grant anti-magic to other people. Yes, they imbued other magics with the magic that is meant to cancel magic out.
Yeah.
How the hell
I've
does
seen
that
that.
work? Anyway, yeah, Asta's original declaration
reverse
is
curse technique.
completely wrong. Someone without magic can never become the Wizard King. Ever. Black Clover feels like watching a crippled, mentally inhibited homeless guy yell some shit like, "I'm gonna become the richest man in the world," before falling into an alley and receiving a $10 billion check because the world felt like it. I still love the show though.
Oh, bro, the
So,
show's tough.
most contemporary shonen protagonists are complete frauds when it comes to the underdog fantasy. They all star some kid with
I wouldn't say complete frauds, but I see what he's saying. Like they're less of underdogs than we lead to believe. But there are some like Asta where it's like he made a very compelling argument for me to believe that he Loki isn't an underdog.
god-tier genetics who happens upon the best mentor in the world before receiving a power that essentially guarantees they're going to win. But if you remember what I said at the beginning, there are exceptions.
Another thing again to talk about though is these powers early on don't guarantee that they're gonna win. It's later on is it shown that their usage of this power is like, okay, they're him. And the only way that this doesn't bore the story out is there are people who still can clips them. And that's when they develop this power, this technique, or this way of fighting that they have now used and refine it. And then because they do have those genetic or opportunic advantages, that is when those two things meet and form a chemical reaction, turning 1 into 100. Shout out Blue Lock.
And one true underdog, standing
zero into
tall
one,
amidst a sea of fakes, is none other than Isagi Yoichi from Blue Lock. Isagi's story is a lot
Sir
different
Isagi.
from most other shonen protagonists. With how the genre is built, I wouldn't blame you for believing that Isagi had some kind of football-obsessed father who abandoned him at birth, forcing Isagi on a journey to conquer the world and claim his father's title. There are characters like that, yeah, but Isagi definitely isn't one of them. He's got two active, loving parents at home, no trauma dump, no dead family, just a normal kid with a crazy dream to become the best striker in the world. And instead of the story inventing some magical plot device to make that dream possible, Blue Lock just throws him into a meat grinder of competition. Sure, it sounds like an elite program, but if Igaguri can make the cut, the bar doesn't sound that high.
Chill.
What makes Isagi so much more engaging than other typical shonen underdogs is how he uses and earns what he has. Isagi starts off the series with two natural talents, high spatial awareness and a decent ability to volley the ball. Neither of these are impressively powerful to start off with, but across the series, you watch him refine those core skills into a weaponized toolkit that lets him rewrite the field in real time. Sure, some of his abilities are a bit exaggerated and occasionally come off as a bit ridiculous, but developing a powerful ability by oneself will always be more engaging than just receiving one. It's a true zero to hero story. Even when Isagi meets his idol, Noah, the best player in the world, it's not some magical mentor moment. In fact, to be honest, Noah did shit all to actually help Isagi grow, and if anything, more so used him as a tool or stepping stone to help Kaiser. It's a pretty unexpected subversion of Shonen's formula to see what should be a mentor character actually become a hidden antagonist, and to see Isagi.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, with Isagi's goal, and again, the only difference with most joints is like, not every shinobi wants to be a Hokage, bro. Some of them just want to protect their village. Some of them just want money. Kakazu, you know what I'm saying? Money bans Kakazu, right? But in Isagi's case, to become the best, that is rejecting everyone else's dream. Because yes, there are people that are playing soccer for money. Yes, there are people that are playing soccer to get better, but they don't want to be the best. But at the highest levels, every single person playing wants to be the best. They think they're the best. Very simple. So there is no mentor for you that's going to like baby you when you're their competition. And that's why he learns through that combat, that gritty, oh shoot, this actually matters, life or death situations. That's why it's so compelling.
Like you say, screw that, and crush Noah's expectation and Kaiser's hope is genuinely so refreshing to see. So yeah, give your protagonist some form of guidance, but always remember to let them actually develop their abilities themselves. I promise you, it is 1,000 times more engaging than just handing it out to them. So what's the point I'm trying to make here?
Yeah,
Underdog stories are special. They resonate with the audience because they're grounded in something universal. We all want to believe that no matter where we start from, we can
get
reach
somewhere.
the top. Watching someone go from nothing.
I'm saying that's life. We all have different starting lines, but only we determine where our finish line is. Our growth as humans is endless, and it's based off refinement. So there's no reason you can't find a talent that you already have and refine that into being a point that can really like do something. You feel me? Hold on, I'm looking at this spread, trying to see if there's any like Easter eggs in here. It doesn't look to be. Besides that dude right here, that kind of looks like Tamari, and he's like eerily similar to Inogen Loki. His joint is not that thin. Yeah, it doesn't look like there's anything here.
Nothing to number one is inherently powerful. But these authors always take it 5 steps too far. They put their protagonists in impossible situations, while simultaneously making them reach for the most prestigious position in their world. And in the end, there's absolutely no logical way for the protagonists to achieve their goal. So, they have to cheat. They hand their underdogs god-tier powers. They bless them with elite genetics, or give them.
He keeps saying elite instead of elite, but he isn't from America, based off how he talked about football and called it soccer. But yeah, I mean, what he's trying to say here is that you can't really call it an underdog when like these methods that aren't conventional are used and come out of like almost nowhere that aid their growth and make it faster or more effective, like little things like that, which I kind of disagree with, but you can't really say he's 100% wrong on that, you know?
Them game-breaking mentors, creating a fallacy that breaks the underdog fantasy before it even starts. And honestly, creating a fallacy that breaks the underdog fantasy before it even starts. And honestly, if you're just going to hand your protagonist everything they need to succeed, then why even pretend they're an underdog? But I get it. It's tempting. It's a lot easier to write without actually living.
To be fair though, I don't think any of these artists like tell you, oh, they're an underdog. We just assume that. Realistically speaking, there's not a lot of artists just going out or authors going out and just saying, yeah, top. I got like the best series, you know what I'm saying, with an underdog main character. We just assuming that. You feel me? I think a good example of underdog though, Yu Hakusho, but he's commenting on Shonen.
Limiting your protagonist,
which I think
audiences eat it up. Fair. But deep down, we all know the difference between someone who got lucky and someone who earned it.
Like it's Kuroko.
Because at the end of the day, the most satisfying stories are the ones where you can reflect on the fact that the protagonist truly started from nothing. No shortcuts, no handouts, just grit, willpower, and growth. Because those are the kinds of...
I agree. It's more relatable that way. But I can also make this claim to help some of these trace scenarios out. In real life, luck and opportunity does play a point. And there are people who probably can relate to the opportunities that Deku and them get. Because when you think about it, Isagi and them wanted an opportunity to be better strikers. And you just got eliminated. Your career is over. Boom. One-on-one opportunity. We want your Are you Nagi? No. Kunigami, Rayo? No. You know what I'm saying? No crazy, stupid ability. Are you Rain? No. But like you made it. And you have this opportunity to grow. Ego is stated to be Noah's rival. So realistically, if you really want to nitpick the same way he kind of did with Naruto, you could argue, Isagi had blah, 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 blah. It's just not genetics there because it's not a superpowered series, right? Because in Naruto's case, genetics do matter, right? And he did have crazy genetics, but everybody else had crazy genetics too. It's just that his at the higher level are so much more superior than theirs. And the story is just him, you know what I'm saying, hitting that peak. But if you want to say he's not an underdog, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. I don't feel the need to argue on that.
Stories that give you hope, not the ones that give up halfway. Thank you for watching. Have any favorite...
Hey man, shout out to Professor Pint for another good video on exposing the truth of Shonen Underdogs. As always, I appreciate y'all for watching the video. Today's question of the day: do you think Yusuke Urameshi, if you haven't seen Yu Yu Hakusho, I kind of recommend it. Do you think he qualifies as an underdog, as well as, let's see if y'all can name some underdogs down in the comments. Some underdogs anime, you know what I'm saying? And as always, time to find me next. Peace.